everyone, and welcome to episode 113 of the Social Liability Podcast, the podcast where we discuss those folks in our lives that violate the social contracts that we all agree to live by. I am your host, the Raspberries, with my substitute co-host, the BluduckGolduck, bringing you new and interesting stories from the far reaches of the internet. So just full disclosure here, Buck is a little under the weather this week. And we tried to record once, and he sounded like total doo-doo. So we both agreed that we needed a stand-in, and there was only one suitable stand-in I could think of, and that's the co-host for my former podcast, the Mount Moon Review, as well as the Untitled Anime Show, the BluduckGolduck. Thank you.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
Thank you for sitting in, Duck. We have
No problem.
We are literally 113 episodes into this, and we've never missed one yet. And I really didn't want to. It's a shame that Buck's feeling under the weather, but we must press on. It was common for us back when we did the Mount Moon Review that we kind of like fought hard. Like, we did episodes from hotel rooms. It was rough.
And then it kind of dropped off because my work schedule got really intense.
It wasn't just that. There was other factors. A global pandemic had part to do with it.
Yeah, there ended up being no news to report.
But your work schedule. You got a big boy job, and your schedule went to hell, and then you got yourself into a good relationship. Oh my Lord! I mean, it's his schedule just evaporated. It's kind of amazing. I was able to get him on such short notice.
And I mean, I work weekends sometimes, so it's just luck of the draw that I'm off today.
Well, Buck, we're going to start with a story from NPR.com. No more emotional support peacocks as feds crack down on service animals on planes. The days of bringing your emotional support cat, pig, or even miniature horse on a plane are soon coming to an end. The federal government is enacting a new rule restricting the types of animals allowed on commercial flights, allowing only dogs that meet specific training criteria. Now, I think it's important to note, Doug, before I read this any further, this story is actually from 2020, but our last episode, we had quite the discussion about emotional support animals and service animals.
I actually learned a lot about that.
Well, this for context, this is an older story, but I think just for our regular listeners, I wanted to bring this one in when I found it just by happenstance. I think it's one of those deals where Google actually listens to what I'm talking about and feeds me stuff accordingly. Well, the new Department of Transportation rule is in response to a growing backlash in recent years from airline passengers trying to bring all kinds of wild and outlandish pets onto planes, including a woman who tried to bring an emotional support peacock on board an American Airlines flight in 2018, and the comfort turkey that actually was allowed on a Delta Airlines flight back in 2016. It's gotten really out of control, says Paul Hartshorn Jr., a flight attendant for American Airlines and spokesman for the Flight Attendants Union. For years, our members have been dealing with untrained, sometimes wild animals in the aircraft cabin. For the most part, I will say that dogs that are not properly trained have... I'm sorry, I said that completely wrong. For the most part, I will say it's dogs that are not properly trained. But we've seen everything from pigs to monkeys to hamsters, you name it, we've seen it. The untrained animals can have behavioral issues, and some have even relieved themselves on the plane. This has made many passengers incredibly uncomfortable. It's the incessant barking, defecation in the cabin, which more times than I can care to tell you. Artsworn says the menagerie of comfort animals packed with passengers inside of a cramped metal tube can make a flight miserable for allergy sufferers, and he says some flight crew members and passengers haven't been bitten by untrained animals. The reason they have not been the reason they're even allowed on the plane is because the travelers exploiting a loophole in federal law to avoid paying for their pets to fly with them. Most airlines charge passengers a hefty fee to bring their small animals with them inside the cabin, but federal law allows people with disabilities to have certain service animals free of charge, including emotional support and comfort animals, without defining what those are. Anybody who simply mentioned emotional support animal was giving themselves a blank check to bring any animal on they wanted. And that's really rather true, because an emotional support animal is it just is. I'm taking a break from the article because it keeps going and going. I don't think we really need to go into it too much more. But I've seen people bring weird animals into places. For a short time, Duck, I worked in a, well, not short time, actually, a long time. It's been a minute, though. I worked in the healthcare industry, and I've seen people bring ferrets and hamsters and things of that nature into the emergency room setting because it's their emotional support animal. And in most cases, it's like it's whatever. It doesn't hurt anything. But when you see people exploit um, what they said is the loophole in there and to allow them to bring their animals on the flight. It'd be one thing if they were just trying to exploit bringing their dog free of charge, but what would you do if you had to take a duck on a plane? If you went on a plane, there's somebody trying to bring a full-blown goose under their arm or something, or a pig.
Okay, first of all, a goose better not be on my freaking flight. Goose is the enemy.
Goose is the enemy.
Or a seagull, because fuck seagulls too. But a duck, I'd be okay with a duck. Um, I guess it just depends on how the animal acts. But as long as the animal doesn't smell or like interfere with me at all, I really don't care what's on the plane. The issue comes in when they're like biting people, or if somebody has a monkey crawling around all the seats.
Yeah, see,
That's not sanitary.
we have a situation where people are allowed to bring the animals, and I guess I've said in this in last week's episode that there is a difference between a service animal and an emotional support animal. And here's the funny thing: for most places, a service animal, you don't need a prescription or anything of that nature. You can literally just say, "This is a service animal," and as long as it's trained to improve one aspect of your life other than just simply being a companion, then it is by definition a service animal, and the ADA allows it to be treated as such. And there's a lot of laws and rules that govern what a service animal can and can't do. Mostly is what anybody around them, such as anybody in the service industry or anything of that nature, has to do to accommodate it. For example, hotels cannot discriminate against somebody who has a service animal. Most hotels they'll have certain rooms that are only for people that bring their pets, and there's a service fee associated with that. Can't do that with a service animal. Now, the difference with an emotional support animal, which is kind of funny, is most places can require a medical letter, such as you're trying to rent an apartment and you're trying to bring Fluffy with you, and they say no pets, and they can just say it's an emotional support animal. And in that case, there is medical documentation that can be obtained, but you can also get that online from any online doctor, and there's lots of services that do that. So
I think most doctors are just okay with it. Like that's another part of the problem.
I mean, yeah. I mean, and truly, honestly, I went to a doctor's appointment last fall, and just through some of the discussion I had with this new provider about past history, she straight out asked me if I wanted an accommodation letter for an emotional support animal.
There you go. That's what I'm saying. I remember my first apartment. The girl I was living with, as it was just friends, it wasn't a relationship thing, but she got a service dog in an emotional support dog
Emotional support.
in an apartment that didn't allow pets, and then we had to like act very proper and everything, like no noise coming from our apartment at all. It was all this crazy stuff because she was worried that they would revoke that privilege she had.
Yeah, and it's this story was picked because I was going to have this continued conversation with Buck, but he actually has a service dog. It's a bloody Chihuahua, but he has trained it to do certain things. I'm not going to go into that's his story to tell, not mine. So having that knowledge there was going to be part of it. But I mean, have you ever ran into a situation where you've seen somebody who has an animal? Usually it's a dog, but I'll open it up to anything where you're like, that is obviously not a service animal.
I don't. I don't actually know how many. I mean, I doubt it usually when I see it. Like, if somebody has something weird in the grocery store pushing around in a cart, I'm like, okay, do you just like, are you taking advantage of the situation or are you actually required to have it? But that's kind of like the gray area that nobody's willing to tread on right now because of the way things are in the world, right?
Well, let's just take for example. You can take that and equate it to other things. In my car right now, there's a handicap placard. It's not mine. It is my son's. My son is perfectly entitled to have it. He doesn't need it all the time. As a matter of fact, we almost never use it. But today we were in Tulsa, and he's having a bad day, so we actually pulled it out, knocked the dust off of it, hung it up, got out of the car, and I'm like, this feels kind of slimy. It really does, because I don't need it. My wife doesn't need it. My other son doesn't need it. But it's not for me. It's for him. So he's entitled to have it, and we don't use it unless we need it. But there are definitely people out there who will exploit anything under the sun to get one, and or they'll use a relatives or what have you. And it's very, very little you can do to ever prove it. But we've all seen that. We've all seen people get out, like hop out of the car and with handicap plates, and you're like, yeah, right, you need that.
I mean, the issue is it's better to be wrong when the person doesn't need it and just let them go than it is to be wrong when the person does need the animal and tell them they're not allowed.
Yeah, I love the stories you see online of people that have handicap placards get confronted by some Karen saying, "You don't need that. You should be ashamed of yourself." And then they pull their pant leg up, and then
they pull their leg off, and
they have like a fake leg or something.
Right.
Now, unless the animal is truly bothering me, I don't give a rat's ass. I don't. I kind of snicker to myself because I've trained dogs before. When I'm like in Walmart or something, and Fluffy, they have like a bed in the seat on the cart, and Fluffy's in there just chilling out. I'm like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever. Though it's not hurting me, so I don't really care. Now, when I see them trying to drag Cujo through Lowe's, different story entirely.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's anything really to rate there, Duck. But I just wanted to bring that up considering our past stories, and I actually do plan these out sometimes a little bit in advance, and I planned on having a buck, not a duck.
Could you imagine the peacock on the plane, though?
I would love to see a peacock on the plane.
Was it a male? Because the males have the big feathers.
The plumage. The plumage.
Yeah. Did it present?
Oh, that'd have been awesome.
Mike Tyson punches the peacock in the face.
That's another lesson for another day. Never pick a fight with the former heavyweight champion of the world.
Right.
Well, Buck, our next story comes from NBCNews.com. Florida mom threatens to blow up school because son wasn't fed enough at cafeteria. Did you have school lunches, or did you pack when you went to school?
We had school lunches.
I packed a lot, or if I got the free lunch, sometimes I did that, but I don't ever remember, this much drama over a school lunch. A Florida woman has been arrested after allegedly making a bomb threat to her son's high school, enraged that her son wasn't being fed enough at the cafeteria. Anaya Matoya Smith, 41, was arrested Wednesday in connection with a threatening voicemail she left at Dakota High School on February 3rd around 5:30 p.m., saying she'll blow up the school, according to an affidavit of probable cause. The city of Coca is about 45 miles east of Orlando. She has been charged with false reporting a bomb or arson against a state-owned property, a felony, and disruption of an educational institute, which is a misdemeanor. Smith allegedly said in her voicemail, "If you don't start feeding my child better, I'm going to come around and blow that motherfucker up." The school staffer who heard the voicemail the following morning called law enforcement, and an evacuation and search was done at the school, but yielded no evidence of an explosive or harmful device. Smith didn't leave her name on the voicemail, but a search of the school's records found the number used to make the threat was listed as Smith's cell phone number. Way to go! The school's resource officer also confirmed that Smith's son got into a verbal argument with a cafeteria worker on February 3rd in regards to wanting extra food. When the affidavit was written on April 7th, Smith's son was no longer at the school, and attempts to contact Smith were unsuccessful. A spokesman for Brevard Public Schools told NBC the district is thankful the matter didn't escalate. Okay. So this is kind of like she says, if you don't do this, I'm going to come around and blow that motherfucker up. She didn't actually say there was a bomb.
That was a poor choice of words.
It was a poor choice of words. I mean, it's kind of like, it's kind of like the guy that goes into the Walmart bathroom saying, "I'm going to blow this. I blew that thing up."
Right.
But at the same time, I wouldn't really be comfortable just saying, oh, well, she's just a dumbass Karen when children are involved. Does that make sense?
Correct. Yeah. No, it's like suspicious packages. I know you've probably been trained on that, right? You got it. Even though it
Extensively.
could be stupid, it could be nothing. It's probably nothing. You got to treat it like it's dangerous. You can't say, "Oh, we thought it wasn't a threat," and then she blows up the school, and then what?
Yeah, then you're just screwed. I mean, I used to be a member of a team. We were a disaster response team. We dealt with anything chemical, radiological, biological, or nuclear. So, suspicious package, it kind of fell in our alley, and I still train employees on that now to this day. You don't take anything lightly. One of the hardest things I've ever had to try to get through people's head is I don't care if you could be possibly be embarrassed. You call the police department and you let them deal with it. If it turns out to be nothing, it turns out to be nothing. Big deal. Nobody cares. No one's ever going to give you shit about it. Well, they might, but I'm not. But if it turns out to actually be something, thank God that you actually made that call. So
I mean, it's just like I said about the last thing. It's better to be wrong if it's nothing than it is to be wrong if it is something.
it is, and especially when children are involved, because we have a situation where, just recently in the news, we had a situation where parents knew their son had a firearm. They knew he was possibly going to shoot up his school. They even left him messages saying, please don't do it. But they didn't
Oh, I
call the
remember
school.
that
They
story.
didn't call the police, and he did shoot
Yep.
some classmates. So, and I mean,
Yeah.
you
And
can't.
they were charged, right?
Yeah, the parents were charged. So you can't ignore this kind of thing. So I can't. I can't give the school any shit for going hog wild on it, because that's what they're supposed to do. That's what they should have done. But it was probably just a poor choice of words from an angry mother. But here's the whole thing: if your son's not getting enough to eat, maybe pack his lunch.
Yeah, that's always an option.
That's always an option.
Or I could buy a second lunch if I wanted to at school.
Yeah, get back in line, buy second lunch, man.
Even when I for a little while I went to this school district that gave free lunches. You had the option. They had a Little Caesars on campus that
Oh,
we
that's
could buy.
awesome.
Yeah, so you could buy from that, and it was cheaper than if you go to the regular store. I'm not saying every school has that. That was just a cool thing we had. But
It's kind of funny when we moved to where we're at now. When we were enrolling the kids in public school, they gave us the forms for the free lunch, and we said, we don't need those. And they go, no, just take them and fill them out. I'm like, listen, we're not going to qualify anyway. I'm not going to waste my time. They said, listen, just fill the damn paperwork out. Turns out every single kid in that school got free lunch.
yep,
I
it's
mean,
a school district thing.
it's a school district thing, because we are also we live inside of the Choctaw Nation. We're in a reservation, so the Choctaw Nation actually subsidizes the school lunches for all the school districts inside the territory. So, but my kids, they quit eating breakfast, and I was like, why aren't you eating breakfast anymore? Because they were feeding them breakfast in school too.
Yep,
So they were feeding
I
them.
got breakfast and lunch
They
at
were
school.
they were
It's
feeding
free.
them, they were feeding them breakfast. They were feeding them lunch. They'd come home in the afternoon. They'd have like packs of sunflower seeds and like cheese sticks and stuff. What's that? Oh, they give it to us to take home. And on Fridays, they'd send them home with a couple bag lunches. It was like, it didn't click right away that most of the school district is so impoverished that they're actually doing that to make sure the kids have something to eat over the weekend.
Yeah, I've volunteered for a few schools throughout the day, and I've seen them do that stuff like that for kids.
Yeah. So, and I know we kind of went off on a tangent there, but it doesn't matter how mad you are. Leaving a voicemail of that nature probably isn't a good idea, whether it's a school or otherwise. I mean, I don't advocate telling anybody you're going to blow that motherfucker up.
Well, they have to take it as a terroristic threat.
Yeah, so you're probably looking at some serious time here, Miss Smith, and I'm gonna try to keep track on this one and get a follow up if we do hear from it. But Duck, I know this is the first time on the podcast, and one of Buck's favorite things is to give these things a score 1 through 5. What do you want to give Miss Smith on a scale of social liability?
I will give her 2.5 liabilities.
Considering in my standpoint, and considering she Probably didn't actually mean she was going to plant a bomb. She was just being a jackass. But the fact that it did disrupt an entire school day and involve a lot of law enforcement that could have been doing other things, I can't really give her less than a 3.
I also don't know what the highest and lowest of the scale is.
5's the highest, 1's the lowest.
So the worst of the worst get a 1, or the worst of the worst get a 5?
Gotta get a 5.
Okay. I'd say, yeah, 2.5 just because she's an idiot.
Just because she's an idiot.